Okay, if any of you have watched some of my other videos, you can see that I often go to this square that honors Confucius, and there's a big statue in the middle of that square. And so I'm back up at the same place because it's kind of on top of a hill above the university that I work at. Ludong University in Yantai, Shandong Province, China. And if you want to do a quick search for where that is, without searching it on Google, just look at a map of China, and there's a big peninsula that juts out into the East China Sea. So that's the sea between North, South Korea, and China. And so I'm at the tip of that peninsula. And believe it or not, I was just looking at a map of all the former British colonies. And one of them, obviously, is Hong Kong. But the other, which I didn't realize till I moved here, was Weihai. And I'm in that one little spot at the end of the peninsula called Weihai. And so there used to be a British settlement here. And so you can still see European buildings right on the main tourist street. And so it's actually a big tourist attraction. There's sort of different consulates. The American consulate. There's also the German, I think. There's a few. There's a lot of German architecture. And the big influence here was, I'm learning more and more about it, is apparently the people of Shandong in China. This is the most traditional part of China, especially in terms of Confucius. So Confucius was born in this province, and so was his most famous follower, Mencius, who was kind of schooled himself on Confucianism a few hundred years later. So he didn't live at the same time as Confucius, but a major follower. And also there's Sun Tzu of the Art of War fame. It was born in this province. And I'm forgetting the something Yan, who was the originator of yin and yang theory, which is the subject of traditional Chinese medicine, was also born in this province. So this province is very famous. I believe the very oldest school, even before China existed as a country, was from this province, the state, the former state that used to be here. This province used to be two different states. And I'm in the ancient Qi state, QI, Qi state. You can search it. And the other state is Lu state, LU. And that was where Confucius was born. So there were two small states, and they were part of the warring states that were battling for control before China was unified under one emperor who was from Qin state at the time, QIN. And so he was the one who finally was powerful enough to take over the other warring states. They'd been warring for, I believe it was hundreds of years. And so this is the time Confucius was born into. And he was really, he just had a great desire to initiate peace between all these different countries. This is 200 years before China was a country. And so the focus of his whole life was to figure out ways to encourage peace between these states that had been warring against each other for, as I say, I think it was a few hundred years. And so that's how his life started out. And so what he did, it was well known at the time that there was a golden age of Chinese civilization that occurred before him. And we're talking 2,500 years ago when he was living. So 600 years before him, That's 3,100 years ago. There was an ancient kingdom called the Zhou state. A Zhou kingdom, Zhou dynasty, so Z-H-O-U. And it was well known that there was a very peaceful time during this period. And so, believe it or not, there was a library at the time. And so Confucius went to the library to learn more about this period in pre-China history. And guess who was there? The chief librarian was Lao Tzu, who was the originator, or said to be one of the originators of Taoism. And so he could actually talk to Lao Tzu directly, face to face, and Lao Tzu kind of taught him about what was known about that period, because everything was written down. You had this ancient language, and that didn't change much over the years, and so they were able to figure out, what kind of rituals would take place during that time. That was the number one thing, were certain rituals. And the Chinese term for it is Li, L-I. And so that was the number one thing he discovered, is that there were the ancient rituals. So these were things like how a son treats his father, treats his parents, how friends relate to each other, how you greet each other. And so it all starts out with the family. The focus is on the family and how a family treats each other, members of the family. And so they're very detailed. And so basically Confucius, he was resurrecting ancient rituals that had been in existence before him. And this is what he wrote about. So he brought them back, brought them alive. And so he himself said he was not an originator of these ideas. He just kind of boiled them down, I guess made them more systematic. So although he didn't actually write, he did write the 5 books, which are the ancient books of China, where you learn all the traditions, all about different, music and everything, poetry. But what is followed is his Analects, it's called, Confucian Analects. But that book wasn't written till a few hundred years later by followers of his. And so he went back to his Lu state, and he tried to invoke these traditions because the state was suffering in wartime, and he did start initiating these with the support of his king, or I don't think it was called emperor, at the time. And so apparently they were starting to take effect, and you can look at my videos on Confucius, and it shows you some evidence of that they were starting to take effect. So society was becoming a little more peaceful and better organized, so it was working. But what happened is that Qi state was at war with Lu state still, and so Qi state, the leader of Qi state, sent some beautiful white horses, which were highly valued at the time, and also some beautiful girls, to basically seduce the leader of Lu state, Lu state, and they were successful. So what happened? His leader, the king, just got seduced by these girls and these beautiful horses. So he just neglected his duties, making sure that the Li were being followed in Lu state, and so everything started falling apart. So Confucius started losing faith. He was the minister of crime too. I didn't mention that. He was actually the minister of crime. So he was in a position to really bring, with great self-interest in bringing peace to his state. And so this was the focus of his whole life. And apparently there's even evidence that when he was a child, he would play little games all about how and fantasize about how people related to each other. It was kind of like his his hero's journey. That's how I would look at it. He was destined to be a man to discover what was key to promoting peace. And so this is what kind of relates to my channel here. I think there's ancient ideas that can be adapted to the entire planet that have been in existence in China, tried and tested for hundreds, actually now a few thousand years, and they work. And this is what I discovered when I first came to China. I moved to an ancient capital, one of China's ancient great capitals, called Nanjing. See, it had been the capital of China for something like 10 different dynasties. So very traditional. So not like Shanghai. Shanghai is the most westernized city in China. And so after, 9 years in China, I realized most of the West gets their news from people who've lived in Shanghai. And I would argue that they would know China, traditional, the real China, the least. You couldn't find a city that is more different from the rest of China than Shanghai. And so I have lived in the more traditional parts of China, so I think that I have been exposed to the true China, the secrets that have made this the longest continuous civilization in the world right now. And so I think there's some ancient ideas from this culture that could be transmitted to the West. And it definitely applies in this time of endless war that the U.S. seems to have dragged the world into to fight to maintain supremacy, be the superpower forever. And so there's ancient secrets in this civilization we can all learn from. So there's tons of hope here. I'm imagining there must be a lot of people that are really discouraged, especially young people. So that's what I think about. I'm a professor here. I teach first-year students and PhD students, but really it's the first year, they're only like 20, 19, pretty young. So these are the people I've been relating to for the 9 years I've been in China. People of roughly of this age and even a bit younger, senior high school students. So these are the people I most think of because of the world they're born into. It's just so much more negative and filled with conflict than the world I was born into. At least it's more obvious, I guess. Maybe there's lots of conflicts going on when I was born, but I feel for young people and what they're born into. And so anyway, that's a key part of this channel, is some profound hope that there are ideas here in this ancient civilization. Of course, they have to be adapted, but that's how we evolve, right, as a species. So this is largely what this channel is about. So the first thing is to demonize China. I have been here for 9 years. I've been interacting with students in English. I'm an English teacher now at a university, or English professor, but I've also taught environmental science, economics, human geography. I have quite a wide background. I have 3 different degrees, all the way up to PhD. They're all different degrees, so this is just how my mind works. It's very open, and I think that's why I was so open to China. So people, find something different and they're repelled by it. I'm the opposite. I'm attracted by it. It's like a magnet. I want to understand it. And that's what's been going on for 9 years. I feel really bad that I haven't learned Chinese yet, but I have been so focused on learning about the culture because that's what blew me away. And because of the conflict in the world, especially against China, or suggesting that there might be a war because of that. I just thought it is my moral duty to talk about the culture, what we can learn, and focus on that. And of course, that takes a lot of time. You don't learn about Chinese culture in a day. And so I am now living in China's Holy Land, the heart of its civilization. The key to its civilization is Confucius, essentially. So by teaching, going back to Confucius, he started off with these ideas of how a family relates to each other, the members of a family. And so he basically applied the same ideas to the community. So how a community leader relates to the people he's serving. So very similar, say, to a father in a family, right? Father is boss. This is definitely a male-dominated society. But I think now that we're starting to see some major bro culture happening with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, men taking the leadership role, I think this is a good thing for the world. The world needs a king, a real kings, leaders that care about their whole society and civilization. And so I think this is an appropriate time to bring in some of these ideas to the West. And they certainly, I can't imagine you'll find anything else that's more proven in the world. Like, this is for hundreds of years. And it's considered Confucius, these ideas and how they were applied to the communities is what created cohesive families, cohesive communities, as well as a cohesive state. So you have to understand the leader of China is like the father of China. And so what father says, father knows best is roughly the philosophy. But it's not as black and white as that either. But a father also takes care of his children. And so it's that idea too, about the father. And so there have been times in Chinese history where the emperor did not follow Confucian ideas, and so officially they were allowed to rebel if they felt that basically that the gods did not honor the emperor at the time, and they would see evidence of that as, say, flooding on the Yellow River, which occurred frequently, and millions would die because of it. And if that wasn't properly managed, the water flow on the Yellow River, people might rebel. They think the emperor is not doing his job. And so they did psychologically have a reason to rebel, and there were times where that happened, and many people died. So there's serious conflict in Chinese history, and I'm not saying China is perfect or anything. Just because I say something positive about China, is that people from the West want to think, oh, I'm saying it's perfect, throw the West out. That's BS. You can learn from every civilization. As China is learning from the West, we can learn from China. The difference is China has been learning from the West for a long time, and we have almost reluctantly been learning from China, I guess, through things like Tai Chi, traditional Chinese medicine, things like that. But officially, as governments, China has been demonized or treated as the other. Like, what could China possibly teach us? Well, I can tell you a hell of a lot if you open your minds, and like I have since coming to China. So I have been really working hard on trying to understand it better, get a deeper understanding, and now it's getting to the point where I'm literally having some of my students or Chinese friends telling me that I know more about Chinese history than they do. So it's just because it's my passion.